it's time to talk about one of the strongest Soul Reapers in all of Bleach.
This is exactly what I've been waiting for.
Get hyper, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know this man can move faster than light? Well, by the end of this video, you will truly grasp the true power of this Chad that claimed the name of Kenpachi, aka the strongest Soul Reaper in Soul Society. In chapter 520, we are told this title is only given to the strongest Shinigami. Chapter 526 claims that it's an ironclad rule that there can be only one Kenpachi per generation, meaning that the predecessor must die for the killer to succeed the title. So, how did this Chad complete this mission? By destroying the previous Kenpachi, who was a captain, without even using Bankai, claiming the title. Kenpachi didn't even use two hands for any of his fights until way later, because if he did, he would be too busted. Hungry for more and more battles, to the point that he'd purposefully restrain his Ryatsu and wear bells so others could stand a chance, not even seeming to feel pain. He was never trained his entire life, so he never even attained Shikai, so imagine the power he gained after training with a previous Kenpachi.
What did he say?
He gained the power to slice meteors in half like it's nothing, becoming one of the biggest threats in the history of Bleach. This man is none other than Zaraki Kenpachi. We're going to go balls deep into all of his significant power-ups and scale just how broken he truly is to put it into perspective on how potent his attack, defense, and durability was.
I have finally found the link that was missing all along. It was Neural Cloud, the brand new 2D roguelike strategy game connecting the stories of Girls Frontline and Neural Cloud. In the virtual environment called the Manga, you will take on the role of the professor for Project Neural Cloud, assembling dolls and building a team of exiles, escaping the virtual world together, all whilst mending the broken and decaying neural sectors. But I know exactly what you're thinking. But I wish by collecting dolls you could increase your power by upgrading and stacking their effects. Well, you can. This is important as you never know what to expect going into each battle, as each level is randomly generated, giving you a new experience every single time. But you need awesome art to match this power, right? Well, that's exactly what you get, as each character releases a special animation when using their skill in battle. I mean, just look at her, and how can I forget her? Now, I'm gonna give you a moment to let that sink in. Psych! Go play Neural Cloud today by clicking the link in the pinned comment in the description down below and use our code NC42LAB to get tons of rewards. Back to the video.
The first time we meet Kenpachi, he gives off a different energy than anyone thus far in the series, straight up paralyzing Ganju and Hanataro, as well as terrifying Ichigo. In fact, Ichigo literally struggles to find the will to fight, with the Ryatsu crushing his spirit, feeling like he could die at any moment. Eventually, they come to blows, and Ichigo can't even cut him, as Kenpachi's skin is too hard for Zangetsu to pierce. Not only that, but Kenpachi's overwhelming Ryatsu passively repelled the incoming Ryatsu back into Ichigo's hand, causing it to bleed.
Boy, ain't no way, boy.
To put this into perspective, this early into the story, Ichigo had defeated Vice Captain Renji and even Akaku, who are some of the stronger characters, which means any Vice Captain and lower ranks wouldn't even be able to touch Kenpachi Zaraki, let alone be in his presence. This is whilst he is massively holding back, wearing bells so Ichigo can react to his movements, and is still wearing his eye patch, which keeps his Ryatsu in check just to give his opponent a fighting chance. Once Ichigo gets over his fear of death and strikes back, actually cutting the captain's skin, Kenpachi gets extremely excited.
Fight back! Fight back!
Showing us exactly why he's so terrifying. Kenpachi is not scared of anyone. He relishes the challenge, charging forward, receiving slash after slash with zero hesitation, enjoying the pain. Okay, but for real, he's so aggressive that Ichigo, despite dealing many more blows and cutting Kenpachi, feels like he's on the back foot. It is at this point that Kenpachi realizes that Ichigo is a worthy opponent, and finally decides to remove his eye patch, unleashing the lethal Ryatsu he has, and ends up slicing an entire building like it's butter. Ichigo continues to learn more about his own Zanpakuto in this fight, gaining multiple power-ups. Despite even coming back from the verge of death, Ichigo barely manages a draw against Kenpachi. Yes, he did say Ichigo won, but it wasn't an equal fight. Due to Bleach's power scaling terms, Ichigo was fighting with his Zanpakuto, which made it a 2 vs 1 situation, as Kenpachi hadn't even unlocked his Shikai, let alone 100% full power yet. Even then, Kenpachi has an insane moment in the same arc. Despite being injured due to his bout with Ichigo, he proceeds to fight 2 captains at the same time? This dude is a beast! He primarily fights Tosin, or should I say totally obliterates him, cause he completely overwhelms his Bankai without even removing his eye patch. This is a Bankai that removes all senses other than touch, and is a power that has destroyed many opponents in the past, making Tosin confident that Kenpachi would certainly lose. In such a situation, only Kenpachi could have come up with the most reckless yet genius plan to counter this Bankai. He realizes that touch is all that he needed against Tosin, and he deliberately lets himself get stabbed to overwhelm his enemy with, you guessed it,
Chad energy.
Oh, now you fucked up.
I mean, this dude Tosin is someone who sliced Grimjaw's arm in one swoop later on, but Kenpachi didn't even hesitate one bit and defeated a close comrade of Aizen's with his instincts alone. Now it's time to fast forward to Hueco Mundo, as Kenpachi appears to save Ichigo from Noitora, the 5th Espada. And guys, if my pronunciations are bad, it's been like that for 9 years, and I'm sorry. But let's continue. Kenpachi fights the Espada on an even playing field with his eye patch still on, seeming as though he is much stronger than he was in the fight against Ichigo. He matched Noitora despite him being an Espada who is known for his brute strength. For example, he no-diffs Chad with a very casual swing. But I know that ain't gonna impress you because it's Chad, right? However, keep in mind, Chad's most powerful blow destroyed a former Espada with the Diablo. So what about causing a crater in the ground with this casual swing? That's pretty insane, right? Not to mention, he's literally in the top 5 of the Espada rankings, telling us that he's quite strong. However, these two are very similar, known for their insanely tough skin and raw power. Kenpachi, of course, enjoys the fight more and more as it goes on, until Noitora accidentally rips off Kenpachi's eye patch, which causes an upsurge of Ryatsu. Then Kenpachi doesn't realize, demolishing Noitora. Noitora, in a fit of rage, releases his Aranka forms. He states that he doesn't enjoy dying, and we learn that in the past, Yamamoto, the Captain General, trained Kenpachi in Kendo, but he was ordered to stop after 1 day by Central 46 because Kenpachi would become way too powerful if he mastered this style of fighting. So imagine being that OP that the government had to come in and say, wait, you need to stop training because you're gonna be out of our control. They feared that if Kenpachi reached his maximum potential and rebelled, he could demolish Soul Society itself. And knowing what we know from the 1000-year Blood War, this isn't inaccurate. It is possible. Kenpachi only trained for 1 day, and although it was an insufficient amount of time, he learned how to use 2 hands with his sword. In reality, he actually found it annoying to do so, because if he used 2 hands, he would win every fight too easily. And as a result, this wouldn't satiate his hunger for battles. Noitora was an opponent that was worth this power in the end, so Kenpachi uses 2 hands, totally destroying his opponent. In this fight, Kenpachi also displays his brutality, a sneak peek into his past, when Noitora refuses to surrender and Kenpachi murders him right then and there. To put this feat into perspective, Ichigo just struggled to defeat Grimmjow, who is the 6th Espada. After training and learning holification, by the way, Ichigo barely won, and going off ranks, Noitora is stronger than Grimmjow. Yet Kenpachi won with ease when he used 2 hands, without Bankai and without Shikai. He's still stronger than the main protagonist of a shonen. Isn't that crazy? Later in Hueco Mundo, Kenpachi is confronted by Yammy, who at this point is labeled as Espada 0, which means he had the most Ryatsu and brute strength amongst all the Espadas, making the ensuing fight incredibly impressive for both the captains. Remember that an average Espada is stated to surpass captains, let alone the one who holds the highest rank, 0. During this fight, Kenpachi has a multitude of impressive feats. He cuts off one of the huge Espada's legs like it's nothing, and when Yammy retaliates, Kenpachi proceeds to slice off multiple of his fingers and cuts off another leg. He butchers him, making it a halal thing, you know what I'm saying? He's a halal butcher, guys. So as you can tell, Kenpachi was completely overwhelming the Espada. Yes, he does say that he's a tough one, but that doesn't disguise how much Kenpachi overwhelmed him, even without Byakuya's help, which he didn't even want. Due to being defeated, Yammy loses his mind, going into a rage-induced transformation. He reveals that the angrier he is, the stronger he gets. Basically, like the Hulk of Bleach. Byakuya and Kenpachi combine to defeat the huge Yammy in the end, but our Chad just states the battle was boring. You're boring me, fam. You're weak. Now, we do need to keep in mind that Yammy was not the strongest Espada. He had the most brute strength, but his overall power was nothing compared to the second release of Unohana.
This guy is fucking stupid!
Or Stark at full power, since they have incredible fighting abilities and much superior speed. But Yammy does have outrageous amounts of Ryatsu, making his skin harder than most. So his defeat at the hands of Kenpachi and Byakuya is all the more impressive, especially considering the ease with which they dismantle him. We then move on to the Fullbringer arc. We see Kenpachi having a grueling, long, intense battle against Hueco, fighting within an inch of their life. Oh, yeah, he's dead.
Know your fucking place, trash!
Now it's finally time to go into the 1000-year Blood War arc.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
The way Kenpachi is first shown in this arc is badass. After the Sternritter and Yawak have easily demolished Soul Society, he's the only captain to strike such fear amongst the Quincy, petrified of the raw power he possesses, since they can't steal his Bankai because, you know, he doesn't even know what it is at this point. But he matches captain level combatants. He easily killed 3 Sternritters with ease. One in particular mimicked himself, so he simply surpassed the level that the Sternritter perceived his strength as. When Kenpachi went to attack Yawak, his second in command couldn't react in time. This seems like an easy feat, but it is more telling of Kenpachi's speed than you might think. This is a guy with the ability to easily kill other Sternritters, yet he could not keep up with the speed of Kenpachi. On the topic of Kenpachi's speed, in his Bankai state, his speed is multiplied significantly, where we clearly see this highlighted as he blitzed a god-sized Gerard in a blink of an eye in chapter 669. But to go even further than this, according to the light novel Can't Fare Your Own World Free, which is illustrated and approved by Kubo himself, Kenpachi was able to keep up with Hikone, who is a hybrid soul created by Tokanada to become the new Soul King. In their bout, both Hikone and Kenpachi were moving so fast that their surrounding environment's time stopped. The book stated that it's a spectacle that even the force of gravity and inertia are distorted by his Ryatsu and technique. To achieve this type of relativity, one has to go at the speed of light. So yes, Kenpachi can react and also move at the speed of light.
But leaving his insane speed aside, Kenpachi's notability is definitely his raw power and strength. In fact, just for his fighting strength alone, Kenpachi is so strong that he's listed at notable threat number 1 by none other than Yuha himself. After he's defeated, he's moved to number 2, being only surpassed by Ichigo. You know, cause he has protagonist plot armor. But the real reason Yuha saw Kenpachi as such a huge threat was likely due to his original power. Yes, this is when we learned that the entire time Kenpachi was restraining himself to enjoy the experience of the battle. But the new Captain Commander, Shunsui, ordered Unohana to thoroughly teach him the way of the sword. Obviously at this point, the fear amongst Central 46 sets in, terrified of the power Kenpachi could gain. But to truly understand the repercussions, we need to take a quick trip down memory lane. When Kenpachi was just a child, he faced Unohana, one of the strongest, deadliest shinigamis to exist, and he ended up being at the same level as her, even going as far to leave a wound on her body. So remember back against this fight with Ichigo when he lost, but just barely, then against Noitora, he seemed infinitely times stronger despite not even training, and again having a close battle against him? Well, all of this is because Kenpachi learned to fight on the edge, meaning that depending on his opponent, Kenpachi's strength would increase to compensate. You guys understand what this means, right? Yes, he's always holding himself back. So the young Kenpachi that gave Prime Unohana a hard time is likely no different in power than the current Kenpachi, because at that point he capped himself. So imagine the level Kenpachi could have reached as an adult male, with his potential no longer being subconsciously sealed. He would be even more broken. The question is, how can he unlock this power? Well, kill him over and over again until he surpasses you.
What?
Yep, that's exactly what the first ever Kenpachi, Unohana, did. According to her own claims, she is the strongest, where the only one stronger than her is Zaraki Kenpachi. But before being a captain, she was also known as the most infamous villain in Soul Society, a true master of the blade with countless techniques. So when Kenpachi fought against her, he for the first time felt fear, but also the thrill of a true battle. Unfortunately though, this extreme euphoria and dose of dopamine induced an irrational fear in him that he would never feel this way again. So in the midst of battle, he had subconsciously held himself back, losing to Unohana and having a lock on his power until their final fight. Yep, in the 1000-year Blood War arc, Unohana learned how to heal to enjoy battles more and more, and she kind of put these abilities to good use because she kept healing Kenpachi every time he approached death, killing him over and over and over and over again until he surpassed his power. She literally kills him thousands of times until Kenpachi's true power starts to leak out as he slashes and wounds her, finally forcing Unohana to use her Bankai. However, Shunsui's and Unohana's plan succeeds as Kenpachi surpassed even the strength of her Bankai, and without using a Bankai himself, he kills her! So Kenpachi managed to kill a former Kenpachi with her Bankai activated, which supposedly makes people 5 to 10 times stronger. That's why he's the GOAT! After the fight and Unohana's final breath, Kenpachi for the first time hears the voice of his blade, awakening alongside his Zanpakuto. Now in this video we aren't going to go into depth about how his Bankai works or its connection to Yachiru, but if you want an in-depth analysis on that, then check out the video on the screen right now. Next time hit the notification bell because we are posting Bleach content on a weekly basis. You don't want to miss out. After this, for the first time, we see him show his new strength against Grimmy, the self-proclaimed strongest Sternritter. Now he may be self-proclaimed, but we can buy the fact that he is definitely one of the most powerful. I mean, he can literally imagine whatever he wants into existence, whether that's imagining his own body to be fully healed or using it on others, like he does to Yachiru, making her arms feel like they're made out of cookies. He even summons lava like it's nothing against Kenpachi with his power of imagination alone. Kenpachi shows his fighting intellect in this battle as he realizes that there are two limits to this ability. The first being that Gremmy can't focus on multiple things at the same time if he's overwhelmed. And the second, it isn't limitless. Like if it was, he'd just imagine Kenpachi to die or something, but that's not the case. Kenpachi seems to have a much clearer mind along with his increase in power, calmly analyzing Gremmy's moves. In turn, Gremmy is put on the back foot by Kenpachi, and fearing his defeat, Gremmy almost makes it into reality by accident, showing how much pressure Kenpachi puts on his opponents. This annoys Gremmy to the point that he ends up literally summoning a meteor to Soul Society. This crazy ass move causes Kenpachi to use his Shikai for the first time. He calls his Zanpakuto's name, Nozarashi, transforming his sword into a bigger sword. Now, whilst being pretty basic, it's insanely overpowered. With it, Kenpachi easily smashes the meteor into smithereens with only one swing. This meteor was so huge and dense that it could have destroyed the entirety of Soul Society. Yet, that meant nothing to Kenpachi. To put this into perspective,
I'm afraid we need to use math.
A asteroid of this size is comparable to the Chicxulub event, which occurred 65 million years ago, when an asteroid roughly 10 to 15 kilometers in diameter hit Earth in what is now Mexico. This impact killed 70% of all species on Earth, including the dinosaurs. The center of Soul Society, Sarete, alone has a diameter of 1,571 kilometers, and this giant ass rock looked larger than this city itself. The force and impact of this asteroid would have had enough kinetic energy to wipe the entire planet. Even asteroids with just a diameter of 20 meters, not kilometers, 20 meters, is recorded to have as much kinetic energy as 30 atomic bombs, which is approximately 480 kilotons of TNT. So just imagine the sheer amount of energy this meteor possessed before Kenpachi completely obliterated it. This could even mean that Kenpachi's attack is more powerful than 30 atomic bombs. Sorry, I had to shout there, but you guys understand how crazy this is. This feat alone led Gremmy to call Kenpachi a monster, who in turn states he can simply cut through anything. To be fair, this insane power would also explain how Kenpachi can slice through the space-time fabric. I'm not joking here, this does happen, as in chapter 578, with the Shikai, Kenpachi is seen cutting right through space. Now his immunity to these type of space manipulation attacks is also re-elaborated in the light novels, as in Spirits Are Forever With You, chapter 18. Kenpachi was able to survive the after effects of Soya Azashiro space-time manipulation Kido attack, which can tear holes in the space-time. Either way, after being slapped off, Gremmy resorts to his last way out, which was to push and imagine himself with Kenpachi's monstrous strength. In fact, he imagines Kenpachi's power so perfectly that his body cannot take it. The monster he tries to become overwhelms him, ripping his body apart. This again goes to tell us that only Kenpachi's body is capable of handling his destructive power. After such an intense battle, Kenpachi is injured pretty heavily, so 4 Sternritters takes the opportunity to ambush him, and he still manages to keep going, which not only proves his insane power, but also ability to withstand damage. This fight proves Zaraki's durability scales way higher than every character, since he was capable of continuing to fight at his optimum despite suffering severe injuries, including a cut to the neck that would have killed anybody else instantly. And let's not forget the amputation of 2 of his limbs, as well as many fist-sized holes in his chest. Did I forget the multiple deep lacerations? Come on man, this man is a beast! Kenpachi is the true embodiment of a berserker who can take damage and dish it back. But don't get me wrong, Kenpachi doesn't just ignore his attacks on his body, Kenpachi, he actually has a good defense. In the novel Spirits of Forever with You Volume 2, we learn that Kenpachi's Ryotsu is able to harden his organs to protect against internal attacks. Now later on against these Sternritters, he eventually does reach his limits and has to be saved by our protagonist Ichigo, but at full strength he could have easily destroyed these 4 opponents. Shinji even backs up how busted Kenpachi is in chapter 581, saying that if he was defeated, the battle was pretty much won for the Quincy's. He even says that they can't let Zaraki die or they'll all be in big trouble. Soul Society heavily depends on Kenpachi, meaning that he now truly stands at the peak. Now we're not done with Kenpachi's crazy feats, because later in the Soul Palace, Kenpachi faces off against Gerard, the Quincy with the most brute strength amongst all the Sternritters. Gerard specifically was never granted abilities by Yhwach, as he is in fact the Soul King's heart itself. We know that the Soul King is one of the most powerful and supreme beings in Bleach, so being his heart makes Gerard especially powerful. This, coupled with his power to convert an unwinnable situation into an easy fight, aka a miracle, makes him a force to be reckoned with. Gerard fought off multiple captain level combatants using their Bankai, and let's not forget the Berserkers on top of that. He even mocked it by stating that their Ryotsu felt nothing in comparison to his own. Gerard later even became a literal giant, towering over everyone, yet Kenpachi could still lift him up and throw him down. Despite this, Kenpachi is eventually overpowered. I know, it doesn't seem possible, right? But it happens. However, Yachiru turns up and changes everything. She forcibly makes Kenpachi use his Bankai for the very first time. This makes Kenpachi into a complete berserker, a demon, a true monster. With this godlike power, he immediately slices off Gerard's arm and shield. This shocks the Sternritter for the first time in disbelief due to Kenpachi's overwhelming strength, but it doesn't end there, as Kenpachi goes ahead and splits this giant in half. Kenpachi's Bankai is literally the embodiment of going all out, as in this Oni state he turns red. His blade becomes more concise like a butcher's cleaver, being smaller in size and more jagged. However, in this berserker state he becomes mindless and has no regards for his own self. With that, unfortunately his own body could not handle his Bankai's power yet. However, Nozarachi's power is so strong that when Kenpachi goes in for another swing, his right hand rips apart due to the sheer power in his Bankai. This is the same beast who's built different. So with his Bankai activated, Kenpachi easily becomes the strongest Shinigami in Soul Society, and by far is the biggest Chad in Gote 13. If you guys want to understand Ichigo's Quincy Bankai in comparison, or Unohana's Bankai, which is comparatively just as broken, watch these videos on your screen right now.